Not since Thursday, February 10th, 2000, when the Buffalo Bills cut future Hall of Famers Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and Bruce Smith on the same day, which became known as Black Thursday. Has there ever been a more single-day chaos when it comes to the Buffalo Bills and transactions? We're here to break all this madness down right now on Talking Buffalo.
Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to kind of an emergent pod edition here of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate y'all very much. If you happen to be watching this on the video side, there's a chance that you are watching this actually live, because we are live streaming this episode of Talking Buffalo here late on a Wednesday night. A ton, and I mean a ton of stuff going on with the Buffalo Bills, and historically chaotic Wednesday for the team. I'm joined by my buddy Joe from Queens. Just had you on the show Monday. You're doing the Monday episodes with me. Things changed a lot and in a hurry today. Before we dive into them, man, how you doing? Good to have you on the show with me.
Good. Tired, but good.
Long day for you, I know. Long day for all of us, I think. Long day for Buffalo Bills fans as well. I want to tell a real quick story about today as it relates to this podcast and this topic, and then we're going to dive into just some of the madness, and I'm going to get some of your thoughts and reactions to everything involving the Buffalo Bills as well. So on Wednesday mornings, typically what I do on Wednesdays is I get together with Anthony Marino from Buffalo Rumblies. We tape on Wednesday morning. The show drops on Thursday. I've learned over the last couple of years, Wednesday's generally an uneventful day when it comes to the Bills, like major things happening during the season. It's usually when they get back on the practice field. Nothing crazy to get prepped for a game week. So anyway, Anthony Marino's out of town. So early this afternoon, I came up with an episode for tomorrow. I called it the realistic, perfect Buffalo Bills offseason, making everything realistic. Put that in the can. I recorded it at around 1:30 p.m. And I put it in the can, got it all scheduled for YouTube and Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. And on Wednesdays, I have a side gig. I work at a restaurant, so I had to go there at 4 o'clock. On my way to the restaurant, soon as I get there, quite literally, Jordan Poyer gets released. And I'm like, oh my God, all the work I just put into this episode, getting all ready and stuff, kind of was going to shit. So about a half hour later, I talked myself into saying, you know what? I can just edit a small disclaimer at the beginning saying, hey, I talked about this realistic scenario for the Buffalo Bills, their perfect offseason, and I can put in a disclaimer. Since this started, Jordan Poyer gets cut. I'm like, I could do that. Then about 15, 20 minutes later, literally, Mitch Morse gets cut. Now that shit's blown up because I talked in the video that I made for today about the possibility of Jordan Poyer getting cut. In fact, I advocated for the Bills bringing in 2 new safeties that kind of starting the new version of a Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer era. So anyway, that goes out the door. Mitch Morse, a stunner, he gets cut. Then Trey White gets cut, which that doesn't surprise me, but I'm surprised that he got cut now. Big name, a big foundation for the Buffalo Bills. He gets cut. So in a matter of an hour and a half or so, you got 3 of their best players, certainly 3 of their most well-known players, all get cut. And if that's not enough, they re-signed Taylor Rapp. They're bringing back Mitch Trubisky. Rasul Douglas gets an extension, or not an extension, but they redid his money for this year to create some cap room. They also cut Deonte Harty. What am I forgetting here? They also, by the way, I got it in a historic amount of notes too. They cut Siran Neal today. Von Miller takes a pay cut, which is a pay cut. It's not a restructured deal. It's basically a pay cut for this year. David Edwards gets re-signed. All this shit happens, dude, in the matter of one day. Just absolute insanity, man. I don't even know where to start. We'll kind of go like piece by piece here, but I guess let's start here. Your overall reaction to today. Just an insane day. Like you said, did not see, we knew some moves were coming. Some of these shocked the hell out of me. I got to be honest with you. We'll get into them. Just, I don't know. What's your initial reaction right away before we get dive into stuff individually?
Yeah, it was definitely shocking. It reminded me of like 2000 when the Bills cut Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed. It had a little bit of that where you kind of had a feeling that maybe they were going to move on from those guys back then, but you didn't think it was going to happen. And it did. And I always remember I was at a bar in Canada and it was Daily Planet, which was a hard bar to get into. But you can get into there when you're 19. Anyways, I got there. I'm looking at ESPN like on the TV, and all of a sudden I see the tracker, and it just says Bills cut the big three. And I grab my friend. I'm like, holy shit, they cut these guys, and we were like both ghosts, like we couldn't believe it. And it had a poor man's version of, I don't know if you remember, like the Purge of like 2006 when they cut Lawyer Malloy, Sam Adams a little bit, like the veterans. Mm-hmm. Troy Vincent got cut too. Like it was a little bit of that feel, a little bit, but not as obviously the same. But yeah, it was shocking because I think heading into this, I feel, there was a bunch of pieces online about, how can the Bills get under the cap? And most of it included like restructures. Like everyone was doing it for the last month and a half.
Kicking the can down the road.
Kick the can down the road. No one had it in your mind that they were going to cut anyone really outside of of the guys they cut to the main people. Like you were like, yeah, they're just going to restructure. And that's where I think the shocking part is, like, no one had it. No reporter had it. No one had anything. I think yesterday someone told me that like one of the, like a media, I think one of the GR guys had it. So, they're not going to cut Mitch Morse, and boom, they cut him, And so it was shocking
because they traded Ryan Bates. They traded Ryan Bates the day before. That was the guy a week ago. If you would have said the Bills are going to cut Mitch Morse, I would have been like, all right, well, you got Ryan Bates. He's played some center. I could see that. But then they trade Ryan Bates to the Chicago Bears earlier this week. Which again, that seems like a century ago right now with all these other moves going on. And Mitch Morse gets cut today, which to me was far and away the biggest shocker. So if this is like, Joe, you're an MCU guy to an extent at least. Instead of the MCU, we'll call this the Josh Allen universe, the JAU. It's not the end of the franchise by any means. But like, I think losing 3 key players over the last 6 to 7 years, this feels to me like it's the end of the phase 1 of the Josh Allen.
I like that phase universe. 1. Okay, look at you, and you're not even a Marvel guy. Good for you, buddy.
I am to an extent, not as much as my wife, but
yeah.
But that's what it's like. It's like phase 1 is over now.
The shock of it was crazy, and I was like, my mind was blown. And I think I tweeted something out like 7-10 next year, which was probably not going to happen. But after thinking about it,
not to cut you off, by the way, Jordan Poyer's brother heated publicly. I don't know if you saw any of this on Twitter. I'll get to that when we talk to Jordan Poyer about him, I should say.
Yeah, his family's fun, let me tell you. Go ahead. One of my favorites. But after the initial shock wore off, I started thinking to myself, and I don't have his takes in front of me, but Nate Geary had some good takes, I felt, where these guys, it's more nostalgia, if you want the God's honest truth. Like, aside from Mitch Morse, great. Like, that's a shocker. But I feel most of this is nostalgia. Trey White has played like 4 games in the last like 3 seasons or something like that. 10, I don't even know. He just, the injuries caught up to him. So it's not like, okay, they lose him. That's a big deal. It's really not. He hasn't played that much, and I do wonder if part of their cutting him is the worry of him getting back to 100%, but also, do they want to wait? I think this is just me spitballing. It took him a while to get back from that first ACL injury.
Mentally as well.
Yeah, mentally, because we all thought, he'll be back in freaking December, in August, and then it became September and October, and then became fucking November. And I think they're worried, like, oh shit, like this might happen again with him, and we don't know if he's going to even be the same. I mean, he's now he's not a spring chicken anymore. He's an older player now. He's got those injuries, and they've been fine without him. I will miss him. We could talk about his legacy and all that sort of shit. Like, he's the man, but in today's team, I think they can live without him. Jordan Poyer, look, Warrior, should be on the Wall of Fame, should be on Trump's wall too, probably, if he wants to be. Awesome player, like, great, but he was done. The tank was empty last year. It was empty it was empty, buddy. I know you love him, and like you picked him the win interception king, which when we were fighting, I saw that tweet and I was like, if I was still friends with you, I would have freaking ripped your head off and been like, dude, the end of last season, he collapsed. He was done. He's done. He hit the wall is hit. Sorry. Like this is how it is. He's a great player. And then Mitch Morse is the shocker, like to me, because it's like your offensive line was awesome last year. It was great. Finally, like it was one of my wish lists since fucking 2020 that they needed to fix.
Before we get into like the players themselves and what it means for the 2024 Buffalo Bills, because what's in the past is the past, right? And now it's about the present, and in some cases with some of these deals, the future. I'll ask you this first, and then we'll dive into that. So I'm talking about, again, phase one of the Josh Allen universe. That part is now over. You just lost not only those three key guys, but I mean, I got news for you that everybody already knows. Micah Hyde ain't going to be back either. So, I mean, now you're talking 4 core players, not just players, but 4 really solid foundational core players of the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott era. This era is over. When you look back in its totality, do you consider it a success, or do you consider it a failure? And I'm talking 2017, which was actually a year before Josh even got to the Bills. But that's when you got Hyde. It's when you had Trey White drafted. It's when you signed Jordan Poyer. Through now, is it a failure or is it a success? Because you can look at it one of two ways. Over the course of 7 years, they've made the playoffs 6 times. They've won the AFC East division 4 times, 4 in a row. So they've had a lot of success. But you can also look at it as this team has been going all in and making moves with championship aspirations. They were a championship caliber franchise. And at the end of the day, throughout this entire era, they've only even appeared in one conference game during this entire era, which they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2020. And they haven't been back to the AFC Championship game there. So when you look at this totality, these players, this phase of Josh Allen's career, is it a success or is it a failure to you? Because you can look at it a lot of ways. I mean, you're also a fan who's enjoyed a lot of good Bills football over the last 6-7 years.
If the Bills didn't have the drought prior to this, I would say it was a failure, kind of, because we were 17 years. But you can't ignore that historically. And they did go to the playoffs a bunch of times. It was successful, I guess. I don't want to say it was like saying failure. It seems like a lot because they did a lot. Like they got to like the 2020 season was a success.
Sure.
2017 was a success. 2019 was a success. 2021, 22, 23, that is where you can say it wasn't really a success. So it's a mixed bag of it, in terms of it. I have a hard time saying it was a failure.
That's fair.
But, they those guys, like I said, they bled on the field. I got no complaints about, them, what they did. I think the time is right now for them to move on from, aside from Mitch Morse, the time was right to move away from those guys. It's over. It happens, and especially when you're good. Like this is one thing I think fans and, we haven't seen, for most of all of our lives, but like from 2000 to 2017, the Bills just were never good. So like guys didn't like stay here for that. Like, you didn't have cap issues because now you do, because you're paying a lot of good players, a lot of money, and you're just not used to guys really leaving like this. And this is the norm. That there are teams that like, the Tom Brady, the Patriots, they've had guys that have left there, but they kept the same core guys. And that's the thing. They still have core guys here right now. Diggs, Allen, Deion Dawkins, Milano, Ed Oliver,
Right.
But now it's time to get like some new youth in here. And that's where this offseason is very important. We're going to see what they do in free agency. I have no idea how the cap's going to work because they're still there as of right now. They're still over it, correct?
I'm gonna run down. In fact, I'll do it right now. I'm gonna run down the actual numbers. So to recap everything that happened today, and I won't count Nyheim Hines because that didn't happen today. But again, he was cut a couple days ago, and they're saving $4.5 million against the cap. But they released Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Deonte Harty, Siran Neal, and Trey White all today. They restructured, or I should say, redid the money for Rasul Douglas. They renegotiated a deal with Von Miller again, which is essentially a pay cut. Those moves alone netted them today about $33.7 million in salary cap relief for this year. And that does not count Trey White, because the release of Trey White is a post-June 1st designation, which means that money is not going to be available to the Bills for their cap until after June 1st. So they'll use that money maybe for some late draft signings, to have some in-season operational money. I get the reason they did that. They did make, again, some additions. Now, Spot Rack, to your point, they're differing. Spot Rack has the Bills right now at around $7.5 million over the cap. And over the cap has the Bills at around $9 million over. So they're somewhere between 7.5 to 9. Okay. Josh Allen is going to get restructured. And when that happens, that's like $23 million in cap room. They're going to get just from that one player. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have at least $15 million literally just for that one move alone. So that's where they're standing right now in regards to the salary cap. That's the financial ramifications of everything that happened today. Won't quite they too, because when I say they're 7.5 to 9 million over, that also includes the David Edwards re-signing and the Taylor Rapp re-signing as well.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
seen a couple more moves, and now next, did you say what the cap situation is for next year? Like, what do they? Do we know how?
No, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is right now for next year, but what I can tell you is this. It seems to me obvious. Well, it seems obvious at this point. And by the way, with all these moves, Joe, it's that they happen at once. It was like just absolute utter chaos. This guy's cut. This guy's cut. This guy's cut. Mm-hmm. Oh, they re-signed this guy. I mean, even into the evening tonight when I told you we're going to do this live show, when I talked to you, Taylor Rapp hadn't re-signed. Von Miller didn't take a pay cut. Mitch Trubisky wasn't coming back to the Buffalo Bills. It's just been never ending. Like, if this would have been spread out through the course of maybe a week or so, it wouldn't seem so, just like I said, like almost like psychedelic, shit like that. But yeah, that's where they stand in terms of the cap. So far, they have not kicked any like real money into 2025 and beyond. They will when they restructure Josh. But That aside, and I think that's important, and we'll get to that with Brady Beat in a minute. I want to talk about Mitch Morse first, because that is, you're right. To me, that's the stunner. The Bills saved $8.5 million in cap savings. He was due 11.5. That was his cap number for this year. It's good for the long term for sure. He's getting up there in age. I get it. He's going into last year of his contract. He's a guy that I think a lot of people thought the Bills would extend or restructure, to get a lower cap number, but still have him in the mix. This was the best Buffalo Bills offensive line last season by far of the Josh Allen era. And Mitch Morse was solid. And now he's gone. And they've already said the plan is to put Connor McGovern from guard to center, and David Edwards, who was their backup last year, that 6th offensive lineman, he's going to get the first crack at starting now at guard. I looked it up. Connor McGovern has only played 100 snaps in the NFL at center for his career. He played some center at Penn State. This is the one that I don't like. It just feels like a big risk to me. The offensive line was solid. It was by far Josh's best. And now you're taking some risk. Is Connor going to work out at center? Is David Edwards better as a 6th offensive lineman? Is he a starting caliber guard? I mean, I personally think he is. It's just a lot of risk right now on an offense that really only needed a wide. 3 days ago, this offense needed another wide receiver, and that's it. Now you're putting other factors into play. So this is the one out of the three that stuns me.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stunner. Look, I'm not going to pretend to be an X's and O's savant when it comes to offensive line. Like, I have no idea how much Mitch Morse was a big part of that. Like, I've seen enough line play.
Well.
Yeah, but but how much was it like, hey, did he have help from other guys?
Right.
Deion Dawkins on the other side. Like, it's all like a moving, it's like a canoe, or a rowing boat, whatever. When you're all rowing, if one person stops rowing, then the whole thing doesn't row very well. So they may look at it to where they want to get rid of him. Maybe they want to give Spencer Brown a new contract, and maybe they want to save the money. And he's going into his free agent year, I believe, his 4th year. So maybe they want to kick some money into him. I don't know. Like, it is a little bit.
It's just risky. It's risky.
It's risky, but it's risky. But yeah,
this feels like a money move. This one feels like a money move. Whereas Poyer and especially Trey White, I think you can make a fair argument that might be about football and the team where they stand now, just as much about money. But Mitch Morse, to me, feels like this was the one where I'm like, this just feels an awful lot about money.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Go ahead.
Can I ask this? Like, do we at all fault Brandon Beane for where the cap is right now? Because I feel like, in a sense, like there's a lot of like, yeah, they're over the cap, but there's no like, hey, he should have done this instead. He should have done that. I don't feel like there's any of that conjecture on Twitter. It just feels like this is how it works. This is how it is. Like, and I wondered, like, are there moves like for instance, and tell it to me like I'm 5 or whatever. Like, why is Stephon Diggs' contract this year $31 million? Like, why is his cap number this way?
Because when you get a big contract, and this goes for any team in the NFL. I mean, I don't have his exact figures in front of me, but what I could tell you is when a team signs a player like Von Miller, for an example, too, they front load, they make the contract, or I should say backloaded with money, so that those first 1 or 2, 3 years of their contract, they're playing at a ridiculously low cap number. Even if they're getting $25 million, the cap hit the first year is only $4.8 million. It can even be,
and this
whatever
just
the
happens
league
to be
minimum
Stephon Diggs. Like I would just.
It's time to pay the piper now. Last year, Josh Allen had a $17 million cap hit last year in 2023. Now his cap hit's $47 million. That's what happens when you get a 6-year, $258 million. You know what this is? This is pushback for the people who say the salary cap's not real. You could kick cans down the road. You could keep doing it. But sooner or later, for some teams, they just take their medicine earlier. Other teams wait until they can't anymore.
Well, and look, I have been one of those, the cap isn't real guys. I will walk that back a little bit, but I will also say, I think if they wanted those guys, if Trey White did not get him injured, I think they're restructuring Trey White's deal and they're going to kick that down there. Same with Jordan Poyer. Like, I think more of those moves are due because those guys just aren't worth the money anymore. It's kind of they just merged together. Where it's the cap, it's also the level of play. Like Jordan Poyer I don't think he was worth the money anymore. He hit a wall. He did. I know you may not think that, but there's just kind of one of those things where you have to move on. It's not worth the money. And if there was no cap, I don't think you're bringing back Jordan Poyer. I don't think you're bringing back Trey White so Trey White could sit there and be like off on the sideline for two months. I don't think you're doing that. Like, so yes, it is real. But I think if those guys were up to their standards of their salary, they would have restructured them. And then we would have been like, the cap is dumb, or cap doesn't exist guy like me would say, yeah, you see, they did it. Because you look at all the pieces that were written about guys who they could have they could have gotten under the cap if they kicked the can down. They could have.
Without cutting anybody. Well, I mean, Harty, Hines, Siran Neal, those guys who were saving $3-4 million, those are, let's save some money. Yeah, they could have kept restructuring. And I think there's certain GMs in the league who might have taken a Mitch Morse or a Jordan Poyer and said, you know what, I'll kick that can down a little more. We'll restructure your deal. We'll take on more dead cap money down the road. We'll worry about that bridge when we cross it. I think Brandon Beane is of the mindset right now that, and maybe this changes, but as of right now, I think he's of the mindset of, we're going to get out of cap trouble this year. He did it in 2018. And then for the next 4 years, he got to do pretty much what he thought he had to do every single year to make this football team the best it could be, to put them in the best position to win a championship. I think this is the year he's just simply taking his medicine. I don't agree about Mitch Morse. I half agree with you about Jordan Poyer, by the way. I agree that it was a financially maybe smart move to do. He had a $7.5 million cap hit. $5.72 million is what the Bills saved today by cutting him.
Do you know what his cap number? He probably can't look this up. But what was his cap number next year in comparison to other safeties?
Right around as comparison to other safeties. I don't know. I don't know that. Not that high though. And I'll tell you, because it was last year when Jordan Poyer was a free agent. Trust me, if Dallas or Miami came to him with money, he would have been a Miami Dolphin last year or a Dallas Cowboy. When that market was not out there and it was dry, he came back to Buffalo and they worked something out. Anyway, so listen, and I know you agree with this part. He came to the Bills along with Hyde in 2017. I think you can make an argument that Jordan Poyer might be the greatest free agent signing in the history of the Buffalo Bills. And I truly believe that. But this isn't really a nostalgic episode here, man. We're not here to talk about the past. We were talking about the present and the future. I'll say this. This is where I tend to disagree with you a little bit. Micah Hyde, to me, looked, with all due respect to him, and I love him, but Micah Hyde looked washed up to me last year. Micah Hyde didn't make any impactful plays, especially that Eagles game where it really stood out. There were a couple other games where it stood out. Jordan Poyer early in the summer, and I remember watching him at camp, the preseason, kind of looked like shit. Heavy-footed, slow, and I was thinking at the time he was cooked. But I would say as the season wore on, I actually think Jordan Poyer played well. I think they carved out a really good role for him. I loved him when he moved up to the linebacker in that 6 DB dime defense. And one other thing, too, that Chiefs game where fucking 9, 10, 11 guys on the defense decided they didn't feel like showing up yet again in a divisional round. Jordan Poyer is one of the few guys that actually made a play that matters. He knocked the ball out.
He did play good in that game. I'll give you that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it goes back. I get it because of the money. And clearly Taylor Rapp's the guy. Taylor Rapp's their guy, but I don't know, man. I don't know if this improves the football team for 2024. I still think Jordan Poyer had some gas left. I don't hate the move, but I don't love Jordan Poyer getting cut today.
It depends what the other moves are they're going to make. I think.
Well, they signed Taylor Rapp. That's already that move. So that's
sure, but I'm saying for other moves, like for them, like to improve like their wide receiving core, which I've been complaining about since Moses wore pants. Okay, this is what I've been like. That's what I want to see. What how the other shoe's going to drop on that. But yeah, I didn't think he played great last year. I mean, yeah, I'll give it like the Chiefs game he played well in, but I thought actually he played bad in the Eagles game. I kind of remember being like, this dude's done. And there was a couple. Both their safeties were done. Like it was. It was time.
They weren't the safeties.
It was time. It was time, unfortunately. But like they didn't. I'll say this: they didn't lose them games. In my opinion, you know, there were a couple bad games in there, but this is how it is. Like they're older guys. Yeah, that's it. When you hit your 30s, it's over. And as I said before, there weren't many Bills players through the 20 years, you know, before that, like were here for a while, successful, reached their 30s, and then they were like, oh, the fan favorites, and they got cut. It didn't really happen because they usually left via free agency sometimes, and they have one contract and done. But
of these three, Joe, the three names, the big names that got cut today, on the business side of it, I feel bad for Jordan Poyer, the least of the three. And I'll tell you why. Because he got to experience the other end of the business side last year. He had an opportunity to leave. He was not going to re-sign with the Bills. He was going to test free agency. And again, had he had a comparable offer to what he had gotten in Buffalo or a penny more, he goes to Miami, or he goes to the Raiders, or he goes to Dallas. His wife was pretty much campaigning for those stops last year on social media before he had free agency. My point is this. Don't get me wrong. I was thrilled that he re-signed with the Bills, but on the business side, he had the cards last year, and he came back to Buffalo because that's where the only market for him ultimately was. So this time around, the Bills feel they want to get younger, and the money they gave to Taylor Rapp, when you figure out the averages, is probably only maybe a little bit less than Jordan Poyer. So he's younger. They got him for 3 years. I understand that. I don't feel terrible for Poyer, but again, you know, I can't help it, a little bit of nostalgia creeping in here because he is one of my favorite players. He's a warrior. I love the guy on and off the field. He was a clubhouse leader too. You know, you are losing some leadership with these guys. I don't think that's not nothing. Not to say that there's no more leadership in that locker room anymore, but yeah, it's just wild. And like I said, dude, his brother's just going bonkers. I mean, he turned on the Bills and Brandon Bean.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I'll say this. It's funny you mentioned that because I said last year that watch when Poyer leaves, because I thought he was leaving last year. Like he was going to Miami. I said, watch when Poyer leaves, like their little clique was going to turn on the Bills. And I remember I had a lot of fucking annoying. It got ratioed about by a lot of people. And he was actually one of the guys who was like, that's not going to happen. What are you talking about? And there you go. Like I
get it.
I was right. I get it. But whatever. I don't care. Like
it's your brother. I get it. I'm not mad at him for it. I don't take it personal. He's got a lot of motion going on right now, but you know, that's how it is. And he's a content creator. And I say this publicly because he does some stuff with Buffalo Rumblings. And I think it's just really hard to be on a podcast and be biased and have some form of objectivity when it's your brother, literally, that's out there that's playing. Your brother who's getting put through the ringer, he's getting up there in years, he's a free agent, he's playing through injuries, this and that. I don't know. It's just a weird look for me, but at the same token, I understand it. What about Trey? I'm not surprised. I don't know why anybody is. This was inevitable. They're deep at corner.
I think it was. Well,
they're deep. They don't need them. I love Trey White as a person and a player when he's healthy. But
they're deep at corner, but I feel I don't know if they have like a star back there at corner. And I
don't know if Trey White's a star.
Okay, let me finish. Okay,
go ahead.
How many guys have made the Pro? I know Pro Bowl doesn't mean much, but how many guys have been voted to the Pro Bowl who are cornerbacks on this team? I don't think there's any. It's him.
None. Yeah.
There's Trey. So I think the shock is maybe he would have came back and he would have look. He was Pro Bowler every year he was here until that stupid injury happened in 2021.
Absolutely.
You know, he was their best corner. He was their best defensive back.
He was their best defensive back this summer too when he finally got healthy a year and a half later. The first month of the season, I thought Trey was fantastic, but then he tore his Achilles.
Yeah, but that's why I think again, as I said before, there was nothing out there that they were going to cut all these guys. It was all like, this is how they can restructure it. They're going to kick the. There wasn't really any of that. There was no reporter had that at all. Nothing. So I think that's why people are shocked. Like,
well, then you don't watch my show because I've said that.
Well, I don't watch your show.
I thought the only reason why he didn't get cut weeks ago is because I was under the assumption there was some kind of rule where you can't cut an injured player on IR unless it was a kind of injury settlement. That's the only thing about that today that shocked me when it comes to Trey White. The writing's on the wall, dude. Rasul Douglas is cheaper. He played really good. He's got only a $9.5 million contract, which they redid today, but that's cheap for a CB1. Christian Benford was really solid as your second corner, and he's on the third year of a 4-year cheap-ass rookie deal. His cap number is like $1 million this year. And you still got Kyrie Elam, who might be in the mix to be maybe
about him.
Well, he's not.
Yeah, he's in the mix. He's not doing anything. So we'll see.
Well, he's in the mix to be maybe another danger. Maybe the danger.
I think you're overrating the secondary a little bit there, buddy. Mahomes diced them up.
3 quarters of it's gone, dude.
Let me finish this, okay, buddy. The Eagles destroyed them. Stop. I think you're overrating them a little bit. You're overrating the secondary a little bit. Like they've done okay. But let's not act like this is the fucking 2023, I don't know, Nate Odom's back there with Henry Jones. Okay. Like, I think you're overrating him a little bit there, buddy. But
I'm just saying, I think
you're a film bro now. So I'm going to listen to it because you're a film bro.
Douglas and Benford they're not elite, but they're certainly solid. They're good enough as opposed to an seriously injured Trey White. I mean, who's, by the way, had a $16 million cap hit for this year. The Bills are saving $10 million on top of all this by cutting them. So this was a no-brainer.
Can I just say this? I know you said you didn't want to get into nostalgia, and I think that's wrong because I do want to get a little bit of nostalgia, just a little bit, like into these players. Like, I think they deserve that. Like, look, I'll start with Jordan Poyer. I know I have had issues with Jordan Poyer on Twitter. I think he blocked me. I think he deleted his quick, but his entire family has to be blocked. I get it. I blocked me too. But that guy was a warrior, and I don't use that term lightly. Like, he was the man. He was the best. As you said to me, you gave me credit. You stole my heat. He was the best bang for your buck, like, free agent signing they ever had. Like, no one gave a shit. And credit to Jim Manos and Doug Whaley, who get no credit at all, or McDermott, who the hell knows. But shout out to Bree. He just asked for a shout out.
Bree 421 shout out on the pod.
He's only on here because of me, because he doesn't like you. But no, Poyer, like, what he did was incredible for here. He had a great run. He would have been a guy like get his jersey. Like, that's how good and like a fun guy to root for once you turned off Twitter. But he was a fun guy to root for, and he did a lot back there. And I do feel kind of bad for him. I know you said you didn't feel bad too.
I do. I feel bad for him. I just feel bad for the least bad for him because of the financial stuff.
Sure.
That's all
but
I'm saying.
In a way, he should have got paid like 3-4 years ago. Like, he should have had like a top 5.
Yeah, he was
salary.
underpaid.
He was underpaid. And I feel bad. Like, I don't know how that worked. I'm not his agent, but he, look, he was the man. And I don't know why I kind of liked him more than I liked Hyde in terms of playing, because he was just a physical presence and he played that linebacker role, like you mentioned.
and Hyde was the playmaker.
Yeah. And he was a great player. Like, props to him. I did say I hope he wins somewhere else. And yeah, I do hope. I mean, obviously, if he freaking If we're out, like, and he's on a team, like, I'll root for that. Like, props to him. Trey White, Trey White was always, to me, fun. Like, he had that kind of vein of like a Stevie Johnson, like kind of a goof, the hockey academy stuff he used to do.
The Trey White goalie academy, man.
I don't know who's going to run the goalie academy now, but like he just seemed fun, and you would always see memes and gifs of him, like, grabbing the replay thing. And, those were things that I like. The replay, the paper he had, I forgot what that meme, but he was just a fun loving guy. Like, he was a guy he was perfect. Like, he was a fun, star player. And they'll always have,
it was an elite corner too.
Yeah. And there'll always be that like nice nostalgia feel a little bit from the 2017 Bills, where like they shouldn't have made the playoffs, but they did because of like Andy Dalton. And you had a bunch of guys who really, that team was not good, but they made it in. And that guy, Trey White, was a big reason why they made it on. He was awesome as a rookie. He was outstanding. Maybe one of the best rookie players for the Bills, defensive players I can remember in a while. That's how good he was right away. And, that's why it was shocking to me, because he just was like the fun loving guy. Like, and you're right. The whole thing with the injuries, like when you thought about it, and again, it didn't feel like it was in the radius of the world, or like reporters were like, talking about it all as a possibility. Really, it just felt like, they'll restructure him, but it makes sense because he just hasn't been healthy, and we don't know when he's coming back. And
he makes too much money. It just made his contract. He made too much money. Rasul Douglas makes $7 million less than Trey White, and again, Bedford makes 16.
It's just the injuries, and
it's the injuries. It's absolutely look. If Trey White doesn't get hurt, forget about not injuries, injury, because the first injury, the ACL, if he comes back the way he looked the first month of this season, he was great until he tore the Achilles against Miami. If that doesn't happen, they're not trading for Rasul Douglas. This isn't even a conversation if he doesn't get hurt again. Trey White is your starting corner. Benford's your 2. Here we go. Everything changed when he got hurt for the second time. It's just, again, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it goes. I'm glad he got released now too, because it gives him an opportunity to, once he's rehabbing, keep his eye on the market, see where the interest is going to be on a personal level. Also, I'm going to be honest with you, probably the narrative that would have drove me the most fucking crazy this whole entire offseason is move Trey White to safety. I kept hearing that shit every day. Why would you take a guy who's got a $16 million cap hit, who's never played safety, who isn't exactly the most physical guy in the NFL, and you're going to move him to safety when you could go in the market and get a guy who's an established 25-year-old safety for $5 to $7, maybe $8 million, and you're going to keep Trey White at his salary coming off major injuries and put him in safety? Fuck out.
Hey, they moved Troy Vincent to safety once. They also moved your boy Aaron Williams from cornerback to safety as well, and that actually saved his career. That's your boy.
He's not my boy.
Yeah, I think he trolled you. I think he trolled you once. I forgot. Maybe I'm wrong.
He blocked me because I made fun of him at a basketball thing at Niagara University, a pickup game. He literally blocked me on Twitter. Cool dude though, actually. But anyway, yeah, man.
Unblock Pat Moran, Aaron Williams, if you're on there. He needs the ratio. Anyways, I digress. But yeah, I guess he could have maybe done that. I don't know.
Von Miller. We got to talk about Vaughn here. Surprising, because I saw the memes, by the way, on Twitter throughout all this chaos today. All right. So your boys are all getting cut left and right. And there were memes of fires around with a guy just on a swing chilling, and everyone's saying Ryan Mura, that great Twitter dude who's always putting out the funniest tweets, it's Von Miller just on a swing chilling while there's fire and chaos all over the place around him, because they're like, well, why is he not getting cut? All these other guys are getting cut, not Von Miller, which he was never going to get cut. But anyway, he redid his deal. I'm going to read the details too. $8.885 million. The Bills saved against the cap. That's going to be his base salary too, by the way. And he's got a chance to earn up to $20 million with incentives. We don't know what they are, which before he redid the deal, it was $17.5 million. So potentially he could actually make $3 million more with this year's salary by reaching incentives. So he's kind of betting on himself a little bit, giving this the Bills some cap relief, big cap relief, almost $9 million here. And I looked it up. The Bills could get out of this deal after this year much easier. They'll have to eat $20.5 million of dead cap if they were to cut them after this year. And then they would save $5 million right off the bat, or they can wait June 1st and save a shitload of money. Any way you look at it, this gives the Bills, by not restructuring his deal and kicking more money down the road, this gives the Bills plenty of outs, plenty of options after this season. And one other thing, this feels to me, I think this is going to be reported sooner or later. I think the Bills went up to this dude and said, listen, here's an ultimatum. You're going to rework this deal for this year. You're going to take a big pay cut, but we'll give you incentives if you play well, if you're healthy, and you can even make more money. You're going to do this, or we're going to cut you, or we're going to do something like that, where Von Miller was it wasn't like him he's not doing this shit out of kindness, man. That's what I'm telling you. I think the Bills came to him with some sort of ultimatum, and I think that's going to come out. We're going to find that out maybe in the days or weeks to come. When they said, you got to take a pay cut, man. You want to play here next year? It might have to do with voided guaranteed money because of a potential suspension, things like that. Like, I think Joe DiBiase from DBGR even said something along those lines, where if you do end up getting suspended, we won't void whatever this guarantee is or whatever, something like that. But you got to do this.
Possible.
This wasn't Vaughn just saying, hey, I want to help this football team out. That's what I'm trying to get at.
What makes you think that? There are players who do take pay cuts. Like, why would you think he wouldn't do that? And maybe, why would you think he'd do that? Maybe he's scared, like, he's going to get benched and not play that much. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Scared he's going to get cut. Or I'm sure there was reasons for Von Miller to take this pay cut. That's
sure. Maybe he wanted to get paid still because he knew if he was a free agent, he wasn't going to get paid elsewhere. I guess so. Maybe they wanted, he wants to be a GM. Maybe they told him when he retires, they'll make him an assistant GM under Brandon Beane or something like that. I don't know, but
they need him. They need him as things stand right now. Anyway, they need Von Miller next year. They're going to need him to play well. They need Von Miller to be what we hoped he was going to be last year. What Leonard Floyd was to the Bills this past year, that's what they need Von Miller to be this season, because they're not going to have the money to go get. I don't think they're going to have the money to go get Leonard Floyd back or somebody comparable to him. I will say Von Miller did play good against the Chiefs. I said Poyer made a big play. I thought Von Miller was their best defensive lineman, sadly, against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I wasn't in no mood to cut him, to kick him out of the door, because you're stuck with the contract anyway this year. And I think he potentially could have some good football left. I think he had some bend to his game, some desperation at the end of the season. And you just got to hope it stretches in the next year.
We'll see. Look, the ACL injury trope is that you need one more year to be like back to normal. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully he does come back and he's stronger than ever. I mean, and they also have that case. I still feel icky that he was kind of still on the team, with the whole thing that happened with his girlfriend and her calling the cop. I still feel icky a little bit about that, but whatever. We'll see what happens with him. I want to go back to one thing. I want to go back to Brandon Beane.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any contracts you look at and go, you should not have done this?
Dawson Knox.
That's where I'm at as well.
I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know the numbers, but I can tell you right now, I know it's not a good contract. They cannot get out of it this year. They can restructure him, kick the can down the road if you want to keep doing that with him. But again, I don't think Brandon Beane is kicking any cans down the road that he does not need to. So I would be surprised if he does. But yeah, he's an overpaid tight end you're stuck with him this year. It would hurt you to cut him after this year too, but you could cut him next year, but it would hurt you. They're stuck with him flat out.
That's why I keep telling you they're going to go back to 12 personnel next year, because I don't think they're going to have a high price tight end sitting on the bench. I really do. I'll also say this too. This shows you want to really go deep into the weeds on this. This shows that Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott ain't going nowhere, because they could have kicked it. Because look, I do think.
Agreed. You're right.
They could regress a little bit this season. Like they could. Depends what they're doing free, but like they did get rid of guys who, Morse and Poyer, and who knows how they're going to address it. They could go into like a little bit of like a 10-7 record. I mean, it doesn't sound like big of a difference on the game, but this shows that they have like full, like, you guys are here for a while, because they're just like, it's a half a reset a little bit with, hey, we're against the cap. There's gonna be a lot of pressure on drafts, man. Because I've said it before. I said it, I think, on our last show, where the Bills have been. You can't predict if rookies start right away. There's a list here that has rookies sitting for a year. There's a list here that has them playing right away. this year coming up may have to be the year where there are guys that have to play right away in those first 3 rounds. Like, you can't, you can't have an Elam or Cook situation or Boogie Basham situation or even AJ Epinesa situation from their first year where they're just sitting on their asses and getting Gatorade. Like, these guys are probably going to have to play.
Kyrie Elam aside, Brandon Bean's gotten some good young, because Kyrie Elam's a bust, but they still, even with
Boogie Basham's bust.
I know they've definitely had some misses, but I'm saying this team does have some good young players that they hit on early in the draft just over the past couple of years, even with the Kyrie Elam bust. You know what I'm saying? 2 years ago, you got Cook and Menard, rounds 2 and 3. Look at them now. You got Kincaid and Torrance, day 1 starters this year. Somebody brought up, Debbie Sharp commented on the live stream side here. You don't think they could sign Floyd? I'm not ruling that out. We'll have to see what the cap looks like, but I don't think they're going to pay $8-9 million for an aging defensive end. As good as he was last year, he had 10.5 sacks. What a great free agent signing he was last year. Plus, I think you're going to see a little comp pick bingo going on this year, where the other guys go on, they get big contracts from other teams, and it helps the Bills with the draft going forward. You know what I think, Joe, is, you look at these moves right now and what they've done in terms of re-signing, all right? So we're talking about the cuts today, and they're crazy because they happen at once. But then you look at the 2 guys they re-signed, David Edwards and Taylor Rapp. I've been saying now for a couple of weeks on the show, to me, the big difference between this team this year and last year, besides how Mitch Morse gone, I did not account for that, is I think the depth on this team is going to take a big hit. Veteran depth. Here's the difference. Last year, David Edwards, Taylor Rapp, solid depth. Right now, as things stand, Taylor Rapp, David Edwards, 2 starters. They weren't starters last year. As of right now, they're starters now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Rapp had a career before that he was starting. Like, he started with the
1 year.
Like, I think, did he 1 year? I thought he had more. I'll be honest with you, and this is pathetic, and I feel embarrassed to say this. I had no idea who David Edwards was till today. I didn't know who he was. I was like,
didn't you ever hear all throughout the season? You would hear.
I knew that
number 76 is now eligible. Reporting number 76.
I remember that, like, they did put a tight end, like an offensive lineman as their tight end in terms of goals. When I just ignore who that was. I'm like, it's a fat dude. Enjoy it. Okay, buddy.
He was good, dude. He had the highest.
I know. I saw your tweet about him being like Pro Football.
And he started for the Rams. He started for the Rams the year they won the Super Bowl. Then he got hurt.
You know what? I'm blaming my son for not knowing that. He's keeping me up at night. I don't got time to look at the backups and the fucking backup tight ends. Okay, anyway.
I like him as a starter. I like him more as a backup just because of how good he is, but I'm okay with him as a starter. When it comes to the offensive line, what I'm concerned about is Connor McGovern moving to center. I'm not concerned about David Edwards starting at guard.
I got who? Can you remember the last guard who moved to center that was successful in Buffalo?
No idea. Not off the top of my head. My man, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, he was a guard his first 2 seasons. Jeff Handgarner bounced, moved to center, was good.
Well, he was a center in college, though. He was a first-round pick as a center.
That's true. So, was he a center in college the whole time? Yep. And then he decided just to play in my guard.
He played center and guard in college. Early in his career in college, he was a guard. Then he moved to center in college, first-round pick. Then he played guard because it was.
Well, maybe he said, that should be what Eric would should do a podcast about going from guard to center and like how difficult of a transition that was for him in the NFL. He should tell him he should do that. You're buddies with him. You guys eat wings together.
Mitch Trubisky, by the way, I'm
not even talking about Mitch fucking. Why are we talking? All it is, he's terrible. I'm sick. Let me go on a rant a little bit. Okay, 2 years ago when he signed here, I remember there were a bunch of bros on Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you want to call it, who were like, Josh Allen went down, Trubisky would be the starter, they go at least 11-6 and they win the division. I'm like, go fuck yourself. He's terrible. He was terrible when he lost his job to Kenny Pickett or whatever the fuck the kid's name is in Pittsburgh. He's terrible. He's there to bring golf, to get Josh Allen's golf clubs and make sure
Kyle Allen can do that, and so could Barkley too. So he's just
fine. But you know what? I know how people are. They're star fuckers, and they're gonna go, "Oh, Mitch Trubisky was a third pick in the." Yes, they're gonna like the pick, and no one's gonna care.
No. Yes, when it came the first time around, yes, because he came from Chicago, and you'd be like, "Yo, that team sucked. He needs a better chance."
You think he's great? You think he's
No, I
great?
don't. I think he's terrible.
he's
In fact, I said I think he's terrible. He's going to be the backup, though. Does it really matter if Josh Allen misses 4 or 5 weeks or more? The team's done. Just like if Mahomes goes down, it doesn't even matter.
When I was ignoring you, but not ignoring you in August, you were obsessed with the Allen backup all summer long. Like they can't go in there with. But who cares? You just said it. It doesn't matter. If Mitch Trubisky goes in, it doesn't fucking matter. Name a backup quarterback who, it doesn't matter. If he goes in, like, this guy's going to fucking do good.
A game or two, it matters. A game or two matters. Mitch Trubisky with a good roster around him, say a Buffalo Bills roster,
don't even.
He could get you 2-2. He could win 2 out of 4. He might
2-2. It depends who he's playing. Who's he playing? The fucking Buff State Bengals?
Agreed.
Nate Geary's going to be the quarterback.
He's an upgrade. He's an upgrade over Kyle Allen. But again, why are we wasting energy talking about their backup quarterback?
Because I wanted to go in a rant about what happened 2 years ago when idiots were like, they'll go 11-6 if he's the starter, and I wanted to take a dump on them without naming their names.
So to put a recap, like on the cuts and the money, and like I said, Josh Allen's restructure is coming. Still might be a couple of moves, but I don't think they're kick can down the roads type of moves. Like Deion Dawkins, I think could get an extension. That'll save you some cap room, and he's earned one. Siran Johnson, I think, is going to get an extension. Not a ton of cap savings this year, but it will be some. There might be a couple guys that they do restructure.
What about Milano?
Down the road. Matt Milano might be a guy they restructure, even though there's only like a $2 to $3 million savings by doing that. But that money might matter because, again, you're going to have to go out and sign a lot of guys. The Bills are going to sign players. I just don't know how many. I would say not worst case, the least desirable thing for me is, and I talked about this on my podcast that I had taped for tomorrow that I had to delete because of all the shit that happened today. But originally I said, Micah Hyde's gone. I projected that Jordan Poyer would be gone. And I'm like, good, because I want Geno Stone from the Ravens and I want Jeremy Chin from the Patriots. Let's have a new potential Hyde and Poyer tandem. That's already down the drain because the Bills just re-signed Taylor Rapp to a 3-year deal. I hope they go out and they sign a legitimate free safety. I want Cam Lewis back. I advocated for him re-signing, but I want Cam Lewis back to be that third safety. I want him to be that special teams ace, that backup slot corner. I don't want Cam Lewis being in the mix to be my starting free safety this year. Going from Poyer and Hyde to Taylor Rapp and potentially Cam Lewis, I'm not feeling that. I hope if the Bills make one significant move in free agency, besides maybe another receiver, because I want a receiver in the first round of the draft. That hasn't changed. I'd like to see the Bills go get a good free safety. I think that is now the number 2 priority on this football team after wide receiver.
I still have wide receiver at 1 as a need. Wide receiver at 2 is a need. Wide receiver at 3 is a need. Maybe even 4. But yeah, sure. If I have to pick safety,
it's up there. It's up there.
Because you know what it is? I think, as you said, they have a lot of depth at cornerback. I think some of those guys can help a little bit. I think you still got Matt Milano patrol in the middle there a little bit. Did the secondary miss that much when Hyde was out for the entire year 2 years ago?
Yes.
You think a lot? I mean, I thought it was kind of the same, but I don't know. I don't. Sure, if you want to get a safety, look, I don't know if I would say a veteran.
I want one. Give me a 25-year-old, 26-year-old free agent.
Okay, well, veteran. Okay, that's going to cost you a lot, though. If you
okay. No, it's not a great market for safeties unless you're at the very top. They're not going to sign a guy at the very top, but there's a good tier of safeties in this class too. $4 to $8 million, $4 to $7 million in that range. Geno Stone's one that just sticks out to me like a sore thumb. Trevor Savage too from the Green Bay Packers. He's another guy that I would like to have. I hope they do something there. But anyway, my point was this: don't expect much in free agency. I'm telling you now, because Brandon Beane is looking to he's not kicking money down the road, and I think they might play a little bit of comp bingo. And for people who are like, "What the fuck is he talking about?" If your players go and sign big contracts with other teams, you get comp draft picks the following year. But if you sign the same amount of free agents and stuff, that wipes it out. But Gabe Davis is going to get big money somewhere. That's going to be good for the Bills. A.J. Epenesa might get a pretty good deal somewhere. That could give the Bills a pick. And Leonard Floyd, who somebody who commented earlier asked, I think part of the reason why they don't bring back Leonard Floyd is because of the fact that might get them maybe a 5th round draft pick next year.
But how does that I don't care. It's great, but like,
I think Brandon Beane does. That's what I'm saying.
I'm glad he does.
He hasn't until now.
Let me ask you this. Like, how do you view the Bills for this? Like, because now I feel like, do you feel like they took a step back for this upcoming year?
I feel like it's too early to say that. And right now, no.
Well, you just said you don't expect them to be busy in free agency. So what do you think? Look, if you look at drafts, rookies, and all that sort of stuff, it is very hard to get a rookie impact player at 28, whatever the fuck they're playing.
He'll get
To
a
be a
starter.
guy, to be a he'll be a starter, but is he going to be a game breaker? He's going to be a guy that's going to like win you games. That's hard, man. Like that's hard. Like that's hard. Dalton Kincaid was a very nice rookie. He was very good, but was it like, oh my god, he won them 5 games? I don't. He was good in a couple of them. Like I think they're taking. I think they're taking. I think even in a weird way, even if they didn't make these moves, I think they're taking a little bit of a step back this upcoming season.
At center, unless they must see something in Connor McGovern, because not only did they cut Mitch Morse, but they traded Ryan Bates. That tells me that they have a level of confidence in Connor McGovern playing center that we don't. So I would say Mitch Morse is my concern. You've said it a million times tonight alone. Jordan Poyer is kind of sort of washed up in a way. You feel that way. I think Taylor Rapp could be just as good. I think Micah Hyde was past the point of being good at this point. I think the Bills could go get a very moderate. I said they're not going to be too active in free agency.
But that's the thing. You have faith in what they're going to do.
Not being a homer, this team's consistently been.
But they're not. But what has been the goal, Pat? We talked about they need to get to a Super Bowl, a division, a conference championship. Like that's the goal, and
their goal
they haven't been.
Their goal is to be as good as they can be right now, but without going nuts with the cap like they did by signing Von Miller 2 years ago. This past season, they signed a shitload of really good veteran depth players. Again, I've said it. I think the difference between the 2024 Bills now and last year is when guys get hurt, that I don't think they're going to have proven depth like they did this past year. They had guys like Dotson and Taylor Rapp and Dane Jackson and David Edwards and eventually Dawson Knox, because Kincaid became the starter. They had good backups where like you could withstand some of those losses. You know what I mean? AJ Epinesa wasn't a starter. Leonard Floyd wasn't a starter until, when Von Miller's in the lineup. So they had really good depth. I think that's where they're going to struggle. But I think you can upgrade Micah Hyde for sure. I think Taylor Rapp is no worse. Center, I'm concerned about. And they got the rest of the offs. They're going to add some guys. So, and I also think some of the young guys are going to, they haven't hit their ceiling. I think guys like Cook and Kincaid, Shakir, Bernard, Benford, a lot of these young guys, they still got room to grow. They still got room to get better. So,
that's fair. I mean, you feel the core of the young guys are going to keep getting better. That's kind of
do. Yes, and I think
they do have some guys that have like Bernard, Kincaid. But what if they don't get better? Like, what if they're like the same, like they were last year?
Then they're gonna take a step back because you're banking. You got your draft. You invest in these guys.
I have
for them to be better.
There are guys that have. I think of guys like Ronald Darby, who was an awesome rookie, top 3, and what happened to him? Did he just regress? And like, there's guys like that, and it happens. Like, look, I know it's a cynic and a take from me, and I get it. Like, people would be like, "You're a dickhead," sure, but that's why they have to hit on this draft. And like, again, I don't know. As I said, I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. Where they have to hit on this draft, but also, do you expect them to have guys impact guys right away? It's hard to do that. It's really hard, and like, I don't know. I go back to like, what are they going to do? I think it's going to really boil down to how I think they're going to run the football. Like, this is going. I think it's going to be bigger now because I think they're, even though in my head I can sit here and go Hyde or Poyer, Hyde, Trey Wright, they weren't as good as they used to be. I think maybe in McDermott's head, it's like, hey, we're going to have a little bit of a growing pain in defense, and they're going to go more of a run style. And I think that's where they're going to go this year, just because they don't have a lot of cap room. I don't know who you expect them to go in there and just be a really good safety. Like, there's plenty
of them out there. I'm telling you, that is a position. If there's one position, especially in free agency, where I think you can go pluck a dime a dozen guy who could come in and be no worse than the 2023 version of Micah Hyde, I think it would be safety. But anyway, listen, so you're on the show now pretty much weekly. I'd like to, we can continue talking about big picture going into season talk on one of our weekly shows. Kind of want to keep this about the cuts, but I do have 2 items pertaining to today that I want to get to, and then we're done before we get out of here. Number one, I'm gonna give you a take here. I truly believe this too. All the moves the Bills made today, again, just chaotic craziness, psychedelic type of Wednesday. But I will say this, the most important move that the Bills can or can't do has not happened yet, because to me, the number one priority for this offseason is re-signing DaQuan Jones. If they re-sign DaQuan Jones, I almost don't even care about anything that happened today. They got to re-sign DaQuan Jones. He is a great football player. He was an all-pro level football player before he got the torn pec last year. He makes Ed Oliver better. He makes Jarrell Bernard behind him better. He's a very good player, and he solidifies the defensive end, or line, I should say. If you re-sign him, and you got all these other little worries about, these little paper cuts on your body you got to fix, well, guess what? You got Ed Oliver, DaQuan Jones, Greg Rizzo, Von Miller. At least you got your starters.
Aren't you worried about his health, though? Why do you want to resign him? You want to,
because he's a great player.
But he has injury issues, right? Am I wrong?
He's got hurt at the end of both. He got hurt last year, and he got hurt before the Cincinnati game.
He's
32. You're gonna give him a 2-year deal. He's not a 5-year foundation guy. You're not bringing him in his mid-20s.
I have worries about extending older.
Not extending. He's a free agent.
Well, whatever. Signing older defensive tackles. They tried that last year with Ford from Seattle. He was terrible. He's not
on the
same.
No,
screw you.
He doesn't belong in the same conversation as DaQuan Jones.
Okay, but you know what? When he signed here, all you guys on Twitter were like, "This is great, Brandon B." Yeah, you were. You couldn't.
Good depth guy. I thought he would be. I thought he was going to be good, useful, but not DaQuan Jones. DaQuan Jones is an All-Pro caliber defensive tackle. He is.
Is that from watching the film?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. I mean, he's 32. He's had injury issues. I mean, fine.
It's okay. Bring him back.
If they want to resign. Okay.
It's doable. Right. If he wants to be here, he's good. In some ways, that plays up to Brandon B to what he's looking to do this free. He can't afford a $12 million defensive tackle who's 5 years younger. So go give me a solid 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's number one. And then the other thing that I think pertains to what's going on today, before we get out of here, keep an eye on what happens with Stephon Diggs, because does he restructure or not? Because if the Bills restructure him, which they can, and if they do, they would save $13 million against the cap right now. If they restructure Stephon Diggs, then I think he's locked in here for at least 2 more years. If the Bills do nothing this year, and he's got a really high cap hit, it's like 20-some million, and they just say, you know what? He's going to play it out this year. That cap hit, we're going to pay that $24 million. We're going to take our medicine this year, which Brandon Bean seems to be leaning towards doing. If they do not restructure him, they don't touch his contract, look out for a potential Stephon Diggs exit after this season, because financially it would start to make sense at that point, especially if they don't touch his contract and they come back with a receiver in the first round of the draft. I think you could be looking at Stephon Diggs' last year, and I do think what they do with his contract will tell you what they're thinking about before the season even starts.
All right. That's fair. I mean, we talked about it on Monday, so yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm still on team, even though today scared me a little bit for the defense. I was, even though I was the panic, and I was like, shit, this seems like, and then I kind of was like, okay, well, look, Poyer's kind of over the hill a little bit. Trey White's hasn't played. I am still on team offensive doom. Give me give me all the wide receivers, all of them in the draft, rounds 1 through 4 draft. I want an offensive doom, man. And I think you need to because you need to have a backup. You need to get a wide receiver. I know you didn't want to talk about state of the roster. That's fine. Too bad I don't listen to you. They need a backup for the backup in case the one backup doesn't work out. So they have a wide receiver to go in. That to me is where this is a changing of the guard a little bit here, man, where they got rid of a lot of salary that was on the defensive side of the ball. This is where you start going, okay, putting this defense together, it got us far, but it didn't get us all the way. And now you should reallocate your assets and go, you know what? Let's build an offensive doom. Let's really take it to another level. That's where it starts in the free agency and in the draft. Like, don't go crazy and try to find the next Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde or Trey White or whoever. Find the next Stephon Diggs. Okay, like find that.
Sure.
That's
I agree. Even if they restructure Diggs, and even if that, the new contract or the new restructure pretty much locks him in here for 2-3 years, I still want to take a receiver in the first round too. I'm not pushing back on you whatsoever with that. Look, at the end of the day, as crazy as today was, and again, this was probably, dude, I've been following the Bills my whole life, literally my whole life. This was the most packed, insane day of Buffalo Bills news that all come down in one day that I've ever seen in my life. Again, Black Thursday when they cut Bruce Andre and Thurman all on the same day. That was the biggest. And by the way, I put out something on Twitter X saying that today was like Black Wednesday in a way. People blasted me because they kept telling me how much better, 3 Hall of Famers are than Mitch Morse, Trey White, and Jordan Poyer. I said I wasn't comparing the players then and now. I'm telling you, their impact to the team, the leadership, 3 big names all getting cut in one day. That has not happened to this team in 24 years.
Yeah. And as the official Talking Buffalo historian, I can say that Andre Reed was way past his prime. Thurman was way past his prime, and Bruce Smith was kind of on the outs.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like he was, so those guys.
Thurman was cooked.
Thurman was, he was cooked. Andre Reed was cooked. Like they were more cooked than the 3. But no, it's fair to say that. Like there haven't been that many like exoduses of these guys in Bills. Like as I said, like I can't even remember a pillage of guys like this in like who were good. Like I said, like the one year I remember was Troy Vincent, and Posey got cut. I remember that Posey, Vincent, Lawyer Malloy, Sam Adams got cut like in one day. That's the last thing. I was when Jerron came in with Marv. That was the last time I can remember a giant pillage of guys like that were like good, like kind of good. Like it's hard to find. Like that's what happens when you have a team where like they just got rid of all like who were sucked for like 20 years. But it's fair to say like it reminds you of that's what I said too. It reminded me of the big 3 getting cut.
Yeah, it's just like I said, and it's completely, and it didn't even start until 3:30. Again, I did a show for tomorrow which by the way was such a good show. I'm so mad at everything that happened. I'm gonna do it. Well, maybe Friday. I don't know, but it was again my realistic, perfect.
Why don't you just post it? Just get those 20 listens. Get those 20 listens.
Besides, I did put up a clip just as evidence that I said on my show earlier today that I taped. I can see Jordan Poyer getting cut. I said, give me Geno Stone and Jeremy Chin. That's my new safety tandem. I'm out with Hyde. I'm out with Poyer. But I also said on that show, there's no freaking way Mitch Morse is getting cut. And I knew Trey was getting cut. I just didn't know when. He's not one of the best 2 corners on this team anymore. And he's getting paid by far the most money.
Well, okay, I guess you're right. If he's not healthy,
I know I'm
but
right
you're
about
right.
that.
Well, he's not, but that's the thing. If he somehow, it just sucks. It sucks for him, man. Like, I just wish he didn't have those injuries.
Last point with all this Bills stuff, all this madness. I don't have the energy or the mentality to.
Don't ask me about Casey Middlestat.
Casey Middlestat ended up being like,
Can I go?
The 8th biggest deal today. Here's my only takeaway on that, because I don't want to talk about the Sabres. By the way, they lost tonight 2-1 in Toronto. Casey Middlestat is traded to the Colorado Avalanche for Bowen Bram. Here's my only takeaway, my only thought. Imagine being Bowen Bram, who is in there or he's in Colorado. He's living in Denver. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's playing for Stanley Cups. He's in contention, and you get a phone call. Obviously, he doesn't have a no trade clause in his contract. That's obvious.
I'm eating Twizzlers during the segment, by the way. So go ahead.
Very, very loud too, man. And just imagine being Bowen Bram and finding out that you just got traded to the fucking Buffalo Sabres when you were playing for the Colorado Avalanche. Imagine how shitty that must be. He's going to say the right thing. He's boys with Dylan Cousins. I know that. I saw Payne and Krebs has known him since he was 8. I don't care. I can know you from afar. You're my boys in Buffalo across the coast. You're going to play for the Sabres when you play for Colorado the night before.
Hey, he can golf early in the season, like than he wants to. Real quick, can I ask this, and then we can go off? So, because I've told you this before, I don't really watch the Sabres as much as I should. Casey Middleton had a really good year, right? Like he was, and he leads the team in points.
Two best players, probably. He's probably their second best player, second best skater. Him and Darlene have been really good this year. UPL's been great in that. That's it. That's about it.
That's crazy. Good. Like, it took them how many years to like develop him? Like he's been here since freaking the Housley. Yeah, Housley.
I don't hate trading him because
go ahead.
You can only pay so many forwards. And
sure.
I'm not going to pretend I'm no expert about the defenseman they got in. From what I've heard early on, he's another left-handed guy.
Concussion issues.
But the only thing, forget him for a second. The only thing I will say about Casey Middlestat, and then we'll get out of here, is this. You got guys like Kulik, Savoy, Isaac Rosane, these really good blue chip prospects in the pipeline, and you only got so many paths for them to get to the roster. They're not fourth line checkers. You can't have 12 small skilled guys. So at some point, you got to get rid of a guy like Middlestat because it's going to make an opening, a path for like a Matthew Savoy to get on this roster. So that had something to do with it, and not wanting to pay Casey Middlestat money that he deserves.
They have an heir apparent. That's like, which I get it.
To an extent. I mean, they got defensive help.
They have to hope he's good, though. You know, it feels like a little bit what Darcy Regier used to do when he would, like, when Drury Briere left and he didn't want to pay them. It's like, well, we have Derek Roy and Tim Connolly and all these younger guys coming up. But
exactly.
All right, we'll see.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, we are doing this live streamed here on a Wednesday night. I want to thank everybody who's actually tuning on the video side here. Got a ton of people watching this live.
Because I'm on here. They want to see me. It's all because of me. Don't ever forget the third biggest viewed episode was me on it, not anyone else. Remember that.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Andre the Giant special attraction over here. Sorry, go ahead with your goodbye.
I'm gonna go back live here and make one last point. I don't think you've let me do an outro in 5 years where you did not talk over it at some point, man. Thank you, Joe. Follow him on Twitter at Buffalo Wins.
No,
I don't, but you definitely.
I don't follow you either.
You don't follow me either. So fair is fair. I will be back with a brand new show tomorrow. Tomorrow will be at
I won't be listening.
Talk to you then.